Welcome back to Narrations. This is a gentle, searching story about a woman who seems to have everything she once wanted, yet feels quietly empty inside. It's about listening to the voice you've been ignoring, about losing yourself on purpose, and about learning that healing doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in moments, meals, conversations, and long silences. This is the story of Eat, Pray, Love. Elizabeth Gilbert lies awake in the darkness, staring at the ceiling of her New York apartment. The man sleeping beside her breathes evenly, peacefully. The room is still, safe, comfortable, everything a life is supposed to be. And yet, her chest feels tight, as if something inside her is pressing outward, asking to be noticed. She is married. She has a home. She has stability. And still, night after night, she finds herself whispering the same desperate prayer into the dark. She doesn't ask for success. She doesn't ask for love. She asks for help. She doesn't even know what kind. Liz is in her early 30s, a writer who once believed that marriage was the final destination. She followed the rules. She chose a partner. She built a life that looked right on paper. But somewhere along the way, the life she constructed stopped feeling like her own. What scares her most isn't unhappiness, it's confusion. She doesn't know why she's unhappy. Eventually, the truth becomes unavoidable. The marriage is over long before the paperwork begins. The divorce is slow, painful, and emotionally exhausting. It drags on, filled with arguments, resentment, and guilt that seeps into every corner of her life. Liz is consumed by the fear that she has made a terrible mistake, that walking away from stability might leave her with nothing. When the divorce is finally settled, she jumps into a new relationship almost immediately, clinging to the hope that love can fill the emptiness she feels. The relationship is intense, passionate, and deeply unbalanced. They fight often. They wound each other. They cling and pull away in cycles that leave Liz drained and smaller than before. Eventually, that relationship collapses too. And this time, when it ends, Liz doesn't feel heartbreak. She feels hollow. She begins to realize something frightening. She has been defining herself through relationships for her entire adult life. Wife. Girlfriend. Partner. The roles gave her structure, but they also drowned out her own voice. Alone in her apartment one evening, surrounded by silence, she finally admits the truth she has been avoiding. She doesn't know who she is anymore. The realization doesn't come with drama or tears. It comes quietly, like exhaustion. Like surrender. Not long after, Liz receives an unexpected opportunity. A book advance. Enough money to take time away from her life. Enough freedom to choose something different. And instead of using that time to recover and return to normal, Liz makes a radical decision. She will leave. Not just her city. Not just her routine. She will leave the version of herself that has been shaped by fear, expectation, and constant striving. She designs a year-long journey with a simple structure, one that feels almost childish in its clarity. 4 months in Italy to learn pleasure and joy. 4 months in India to seek devotion and inner peace. 4 months in Bali to find balance. Eat. Pray. Love. At first, the plan feels indulgent, even irresponsible. Friends question it. Some envy her. Others quietly judge. But Liz understands something important. If she doesn't do this now, she may never do it at all. And so she packs her bags and boards a plane, leaving behind the familiar skyline of New York and landing in Rome. Italy greets her with noise, warmth, and unapologetic pleasure. The streets are alive with conversation, laughter, and motion. Liz rents a small apartment, and immediately feels the absence of expectations. No one here knows her story. No one cares about her past. For the first time in years, she doesn't need to explain herself. Her days quickly settle into a rhythm centered around food, glorious, excessive, joyful food. Pizza. Pasta. Gelato. Bread drenched in olive oil. Meals stretch for hours. Conversations wander. Time feels elastic. At first, Liz feels guilty for enjoying herself this much. Years of discipline and self-denial don't disappear overnight. A small voice inside her whispers that pleasure must be earned, that indulgence is dangerous. But Italy is patient. She befriends a group of locals and expatriates who welcome her without question. Giovanni, with his sharp wit and tender heart. Sophie, a Swedish woman rebuilding her own life. Luca Spaghetti, who insists that Liz's sole responsibility in Italy is to eat well and learn Italian. They tease her gently, reminding her that life does not always need to be productive to be meaningful. One afternoon, Liz steps on a scale and freezes. She has gained weight. The old panic rises immediately, the familiar shame, the fear of losing control, the urge to punish herself. But something unexpected happens. Instead of spiraling, she laughs. She buys new jeans. Jeans that fit the body she has now. It's a small act, but it feels revolutionary. In Italy, Liz learns that pleasure is not a reward, it is a right. She studies the Italian language not for mastery, but for joy. She savors words the way she savors meals, letting them roll around in her mouth, imperfect and alive. For once, she allows herself to be bad at something without shame. And slowly, without realizing it, the tightness in her chest begins to loosen. But even in the warmth of Italy, loneliness finds her. There are evenings when she returns to her apartment alone, when the silence presses in. Pleasure has softened her, but it hasn't answered the deeper questions. She knows Italy is not the destination, it is the beginning. When the time comes to leave, Liz feels both gratitude and readiness. She has tasted joy again. She has remembered how to be present. Now she must face the part of herself she has been avoiding. India. The ashram is a shock to her system. The quiet is dense. The days begin before sunrise. There are rules, rituals, and endless hours of meditation. Gone are the indulgent meals and leisurely afternoons. Here, discipline replaces pleasure. Liz struggles almost immediately. Her mind refuses to cooperate. Thoughts swarm her during meditation, regrets, memories, anxieties, fragments of conversations long past. She berates herself for failing at stillness, for being unable to quiet her thoughts. She volunteers for service, scrubbing floors and cleaning toilets, believing hard work might tame her restless mind. But even as her hands move, her thoughts race. One night, overwhelmed and exhausted, Liz breaks down. Sitting alone, she confronts the grief she has been carrying for years, the guilt over her divorce, the pain she caused, the fear that she is fundamentally broken. In that moment of vulnerability, something shifts. She realizes she has been punishing herself long after the world stopped asking her to. She has clung to guilt as proof of goodness, believing that suffering somehow makes her worthy. The realization is uncomfortable, but freeing. Under the guidance of the ashram's teacher, Liz begins to approach meditation differently. Not as a task to be conquered, but as a practice of forgiveness. She starts speaking kindly to herself and her thoughts, gently redirecting her mind instead of attacking it. Progress is slow. Some days feel empty. Others feel impossible. But then, one morning, in the quiet before dawn, Liz experiences something she can't quite explain. Stillness. Just for a moment. No thoughts. No judgment. Just presence. The moment passes quickly, but it leaves behind a sense of peace she has never known. She understands then that devotion is not about perfection, it's about showing up, again and again, with humility. As her time in India draws to a close, Liz feels stronger, quieter, and more grounded than she has in years. She hasn't found all the answers, but she has learned how to sit with the questions without fear. And now, she travels to the final place on her journey. Bali. Liz arrives in Bali carrying a quiet stillness she didn't have before. Italy softened her. India steadied her. Bali feels like the place where those two selves might finally learn how to live together. The air is thick with heat and green everywhere she looks. Rice fields stretch endlessly, layered like steps toward the horizon. Offerings of flowers and incense sit on doorsteps, corners, sidewalks, reminders that devotion here is woven into daily life, not separated from it. Liz settles into a small house surrounded by nature. The days are slower here, but not empty. She isn't chasing pleasure, and she isn't chasing enlightenment. For the first time in a long while, she isn't chasing anything at all. She begins visiting Ketut Layer, an elderly medicine man she met briefly on an earlier trip. Ketut welcomes her with laughter and warmth, reading her palm with playful seriousness. He tells her she will live a long life. He tells her she must learn balance. He tells her that smiling is part of spiritual practice. Liz laughs, but she listens. Balance. The word follows her everywhere. She spends her days cycling through villages, reading, writing, and sitting quietly with herself. Some mornings are peaceful. Others are heavy with the old restlessness. Healing, she learns, isn't linear. Old fears return without warning, testing whether she truly trusts the ground beneath her. One afternoon, Liz meets Wei-Yin, a healer and single mother struggling to keep her home. Wei-Yin's life is marked by generosity and hardship in equal measure. Liz feels drawn to her immediately, not as a teacher, but as a reminder that balance doesn't mean comfort. It means resilience. When Liz learns that Wei-Yin may lose her house, she feels an instinctive urge to help. Money, once a source of stress and guilt, now feels like a tool. She organizes support, not to save Wei-Yin, but to stand beside her. Helping no longer feels like obligation. It feels like connection. And then, unexpectedly, love appears. Felipe arrives in her life without ceremony. He is calm, grounded, and emotionally present in a way Liz hasn't experienced before. Their connection grows naturally, no chasing, no drama, no urgency to define it. Still, fear rises in Liz almost immediately. Love has hurt her before. Love has cost her pieces of herself. She worries that entering another relationship might undo everything she's worked to build. She pulls away. She overthinks. She tries to control the pace, the meaning, the outcome. And for the first time, she recognizes the pattern while she's still inside it. Rather than running, she chooses honesty, with herself and with him. She admits her fear. She admits her history. She admits that love still terrifies her. Felipe listens. He doesn't fix. He doesn't pressure. He stays. Slowly, Liz allows herself to believe that love doesn't have to consume her to be real. That intimacy can exist without losing balance. That partnership doesn't mean disappearance. Their time together is simple. Conversations. Shared meals. Quiet laughter. There are no grand declarations, only presence. And in that simplicity, Liz feels whole. As her year comes to an end, Liz reflects on the woman who boarded that plane months ago. The woman who cried on her bathroom floor. The woman who believed something was wrong with her. She understands now that nothing was broken. She wasn't lost, she was unheard. Through pleasure, devotion, and balance, Liz learned to listen. To forgive herself. To trust that life doesn't require constant struggle to be meaningful. Her journey didn't erase pain. It gave it context. And that, she realizes, is enough. In the end, Eat, Pray, Love reminds us that healing isn't about escaping who we are, it's about returning to ourselves with compassion. That joy and discipline can coexist. That love doesn't have to be earned through suffering. And that sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is pause long enough to ask what we truly need. If you enjoyed listening to this story, please like the video, share it with someone who loves movies like this, and subscribe for more narrations.